Nationwide Football League Extra, in association with the Nationwide Building Society.
3 divisions times 36 matches equals 80 goals. Stand by for all the action and incident from week 9. In May '95, Brentford's promotion dream turned nasty. They topped Division 2 again, but have they learnt their lesson? There's an early masterclass from Alan Shearer, England captain today, Southampton sensation 5 years ago. We roll with it and spend Saturday afternoon with Noel Gallagher, Oasis superstar and football fanatic.
And our Queen's Park Rangers and Manchester City still contenders to go straight back into the Premier League. They were the bookies' pre-season favourites, but that was 2 months and 2 managers ago. Well, we'll speak to Steve Coppell and Stewart Houston, the new men. After all the other action from Division 1, Bolton Wanderers, the other relegated team, were the leaders going into the weekend.
If Bolton Wanderers maintain their current home form, they'll be well on the way to promotion by the new year. Oldham was swept aside by a first-half performance, big on pace and ruthless finishing. Michael Johansson cashed in on a neat dummy by Nathan Blake. Then John McGinley came to life. The farce in Estonia meant McGinley missed out on a chance to impress for Scotland, but he took it out on Oldham. McGinley rounded off more cut-and-thrust approach play, and it was 3-0 to Bolton on the half-hour. Twice defender Jimmy Phillips tried to pick out McGinley. Jerry Taggart got there in the end, and McGinley's finish was delightful. We were brilliant throughout, said Bolton boss Colin Todd. Graham Sharp was equally generous with his praise. At least his team did rather better in the second half, when substitute Mark Allers scored his first Oldham goal. For 24 hours, Norwich City were top. If Bolton were impressive, Mike Walker couldn't have asked for much more as Norwich dominated in the East Anglian derby. Between them, Robert Fleck and Andy Johnson cut right through the heart of the Ipswich defence. Johnson made it 2 on Friday night and 2 for Norwich when he headed in a deep free kick. Ipswich scored a fine goal of their own. Early in the second half, Danny Sunner volleyed in to briefly question Norwich's result. But Walker's side were rarely troubled again, and centre-back John Polston rounded off an excellent team performance with his first of the season. Referee David Allison won't be on Dave Bassett's Christmas card list. When George Endar headed in, Crystal Palace thought they had the lead. Instead, Mr. Allison called everyone back and disallowed the goal for pushing. In the second half, Barnsley got the benefits of another controversial decision. David Tuttle was penalised for fouling Andy Liddell. But Palace's young goalkeeper Chris Day was outstanding, and his reactions denied Neil Redfern the winner from the penalty spot. Tranmere Rovers stay in 4th place. John Aldridge had asked for an improved defensive display, and he got it. Sheffield United's pressure was frantic and non-stop for the final 20 minutes. But Dane Whitehouse was among the United players unable to find a way through. After 2 defeats, Wolves were wobbling again at Southend United on Sunday. Mike Marsh screamed for the ball on the edge of the box and then put Southend in front via a deflection off Dean Richards. Wolves' second-half performance was an improvement, but there were just 17 minutes remaining when Mark Venus broke from the back and Steve Bull headed in his 6th of the season. But 1-1 won't have impressed Mark McGee that much. Huddersfield's Town players will see this as a win bonus wasted. The commentator is David Smith.
Jenkins now. Got a deflection. Still the possibility of the shot. Comes in now. Still not away. Huddersfield again. Burnett had the initial shot, which was beaten away. And then finally a great effort by Cowan. That is a magnificent goal by Huddersfield. 10 minutes into the second half, and Cowan has produced one of the goals of the season. Ashcroft. It's not connected, and there's the equaliser. And it it is the 6th goal of the season. It was the perfect corner for Hunt, taken by Ashcroft, and the header delivered by Hunt. And it's West Brom 1, Huddersfield 1. Hunt, the goal scorer. Oh, a great interception. Snakers, unlucky. There's still the possibility. Ashcroft is in space. Can he finish it? Great save by Francis.
Stoke City hadn't won a Potteries derby for 3.5 years. But for much of the second half, this game appeared to be heading their way. Kevin Keane had come on as a substitute, and his header at the far post looped across Arjan van Hoesten and in. But the super sub label belonged in the end to Port Vale's Lee Mills. Twice he'd missed easy chances, but 3 minutes into injury time, Mills was head and shoulders above Stoke's goalkeeper Mark Prudo, and Stoke's wait for that derby win goes on. For Swindon and Oxford fans, this game is as big as any they'll play all season.
It goes Horlock, and it's squeezed over the line.
Defeat in this one, and Trevor Francis might have been starting to wonder about the wisdom of going back to Birmingham. But his team were in charge right from the off. In 39 seconds, Paul Devlin had sprinted through to make it 1-0. Bradford City had Francis's ex-England teammate Chris Waddle on loan making his debut, but Waddle was always on the fringe. Devlin was centre stage. His second couldn't have been more confidently dispatched. Birmingham were well on the way to climbing the table. Francis has signed Derby striker Marco Gabbiadini on loan to maintain that momentum. Bradford's away form, though, is ominously poor. Jonathan Hunt's late deflected overhead kick summed up their afternoon. Reading's home form continues to undermine their hopes of rising up the table. They were in front when the Grimsby keeper Jason Pearcey hesitated and then fouled Trevor Morley. Pearcey might have been sent off earlier in the season. Even so, he couldn't stop Morley's penalty kick. But 7 minutes from the end, Grimsby put together their best move of the match. Clive Mendonca gave Darren Rack the room to run in, and the substitute couldn't have placed his shot better. 1-1. Charlton's neat attacking football is winning them critical praise, but not too many points. Alan Kirbishley's side controlled possession, but they had nobody to match the cutting edge provided by John Durnin. His stunning goal put Portsmouth in front 12 minutes from the end. And they made sure of their first win in 8 games with a smash-and-grab goal at the finish. Jimmy Carter made the most of the wide-open spaces. Lee Bradbury scored at the second attempt. Patience is a must for every Manchester City supporter. It's 20 years since the club won a trophy. It's just taken them 6 weeks to find a new manager. So when he finally emerged at Loftus Road, there was a large contingent and a booming welcome for Steve Coppell.
Well, I think the desire to be successful here is probably greater than at any other club, mainly because of what's going on the other side of the city. But just independently, everyone feels that it's a big club. Everything about it is Premiership, except the position in the league where they are at the moment.
But this was the start of a new era, and an afternoon made extra special by the appearance of Noel Gallagher, Oasis band leader, multi-millionaire, and Manchester City season ticket holder, whose own rise has been mirrored by the club's decline.
I just don't think we've got a very good team at the moment. I mean, I think some of the players just seem to be coasting, and the rest of the players seem to be a bit frightened of like playing in front of the fans. So I mean, I think it'll take another couple of seasons before we get out of this league yet. But as long as United don't win anything, who cares? At the end of the day, really. Isn't it, Griggs? Tell him.
Absolutely. What about Steve Coppell? What did you make of that?
We went down the dressing room to see him before. He looks a bit too young to be a City manager, but we'll soon sort that out up at Main Road. I mean, he's too thin off. He'll be fat and old by the end of the season. I guarantee you, Steve.
On the bench or in the executive box, Manchester City's start wasn't much good for the blood pressure. In attack, they were positive, but wasteful. Clean through, Paul Dickov couldn't find a way past Jürgen Sommer. And Coppell soon had confirmation of City's big problem, defending. Goalkeeper Andy Dibble rushed from goal to correct some unconvincing work in front of him, only for Trevor Sinclair, Queen's Park Rangers transfer-listed striker, to steer in a brilliant goal, sure to impress any watching manager. Rangers' young side was swarming everywhere, and within 8 minutes they were 2 up. This time City sweeper Eddie McGoldrick lost his footing, and teenager Paul Murray couldn't miss. New manager, same old story. But Coppell's honeymoon wasn't about to end prematurely. Within a minute, Steve Lomas popped up on the left, created some space for himself with a surprisingly deft turn, and there was fullback Ian Bricewell to thunder in a shot off the bar. And a decent fixture was turning into a very lively occasion that simmered with incidents and boiled over at regular intervals. Andrew Impey and Lomas squared up and traded blows. Remarkably, they weren't sent off. But by the second half, City were rolling with the punches rather better. Coppell reverted to a flat back four. Georgi Kinkladze began to cast his spell in midfield to give the attack a real edge. Uwe Rossler was one of 3 players to hit the post or bar as Rangers retreated. Yet their new manager, Stewart Houston, was just 9 minutes away from his first victory when Nigel Clough's pass gave Kinkladze the chance to inflict some damage. The Georgian tricked and teased and picked his moment, and only Impey's hand could stop him scoring. This time Impey was sent off, and this time Rangers weren't spared. It was entirely appropriate that Kinkladze should score the equaliser. A point was the least his performance deserved. And accustomed as they are to false dawns, on this evidence City fans can be reasonably confident. More of the same, and Noel Gallagher might even consider a place on the Main Road board. They'd love to have him.
You know, everyone's on the toes, everyone tries that little bit harder. They've had sort of 6 weeks without a manager, and things just tend to drift a little bit. So, you know, with somebody just there, I think an impact would have been made. But the response to the players all week in training has been first rate, and here in the 90 minutes today has perhaps been more than I could have expected.
Everybody's talking about who we're going to buy, but you know, we're not at the moment in time in a position to say that we are doing anything on that. But we'll keep looking, and we'll get on with the job.
Still time. Do you still feel there is time to be in among the contenders?
Well, I look at the league position, and probably we're only halfway in the league or whatever. But it's a long season, and I think you have to believe that you can get a run together.
We talked to Noel Gallagher of Oasis, who was here before the game. He was a bit sceptical, I think, just about the way that City have been playing, as I think as most of the fans are. But at the end, he was smiling. He was happier.
Well, he came into the dressing room beforehand to see all the players, but unfortunately all the players were out on the pitch, so he never saw any of them. But it was great of him to come along. And obviously such a hero figure now, and to come along and to add his support. That was very pleasing.
He was smiling at the end, which not too many City fans have been doing away from home, I don't think, recently.
Well, long may it continue.
Manchester City's first draw of the season wasn't enough to stop them dropping 2 places. Portsmouth and Swindon go above them. Birmingham's win lifts them up 4 places. The bottom 3 were all beaten. The top 2 won, and there's now a 4-point gap between Norwich in second and third-placed Barnsley. Ipswich lost, but the other 9 teams in the top half were all involved in drawn matches. If at first you don't succeed, well, at Brentford, David Webb is trying all over again. His team went into the weekend as the Nationwide League's last unbeaten team, 18 months on from the night when they went out in the playoffs on penalties. Brentford had finished second, but it was Huddersfield who went up to Division 1.
I think this time we're going to practice and make sure we don't have to go through the playoffs this time. That's the difference. I think it is a very similar situation because, you know, we've got a lot of young players. There's a lot of fresh blood, in which there was that season. And when it came to the end of the season, it was, you know, the penalty shootout situation. You know, we'll probably practice after Christmas for penalty shootouts.
2 seasons ago, Webb's FT index, Forster and Taylor, scored 50 goals between them. Now they're being outshone by Carl Asaba, the league's top scorer. Bright enough to go to university, Asaba opted for Brentford.
Gaffer's a winner. He wants to win. Anyone who's going to sort of detract from that from the team, will not be in the team. He only wants people who are 100% committed to the cause. And you'll see that with most of the players here. Everyone knows what we've got to do when we're on the pitch. And anyone who doesn't do it gets a few harsh words. And the next time they're on the pitch, they perform as is expected.
Asaba didn't add to his 11 goals on Saturday. Brentford's long unbeaten run disappeared in 5 frantic second-half minutes. Crew's Mark Rivers exploited David McGee's mistake. And when the Brentford defender mistimed a tackle, Crew, who also know what it's like to miss out in the playoffs, had a penalty. Sean Smith scored it, and now comes the first real test for the new Brentford, recovering from that setback.
It's no good whinging or moaning about anything. You just get on with it, and what will be will be. You know, the other year, what would be would that we weren't going to get promoted. That's the way it is. You know, hopefully it might take us 2 years down the road to go and do it. You know, if this is the second year, let's hope we can do it.
Still to come, 52 goals. Mark Bosnich wasn't the only goalkeeper with a weekend to forget. And Nigel Clough on Coppell's arrival and the genius of Kincladze.
Welcome back to Nationwide League Extra. Well, in part 1 we saw how Brentford lost the last unbeaten record in the country when they were beaten at Crewe Alexandra. Watford in second place weren't really able though to take advantage. Rounding up Division 2, here's David Smith.
Comes Humes! Oh, he's got it! Good skill by Paisley. The cross isn't bad either. And it's reached Penrice. Oh, brilliant challenge by McGregor. The referee's given an offence. It's a penalty. And Watford have themselves a lifeline. And Mooney takes it.
Bury have rarely enjoyed easy pickings at Peterborough, but they were gifted their opening goal by Bart Grieming, who was making his debut having signed from Birmingham. Rob Matthews was the lucky recipient. Peterborough fought back as they tried to avoid a second successive defeat, with Greg Hield equalising. But Bury ended a sequence of 4 defeats at Peterborough. It was a pretty good goal that eventually came from David Johnson, and certainly worth celebrating. But Johnson got a little carried away, to the point he was sent off for excessive celebrations. Bury survived with 10 men, and Peterborough's Sean Farrell was later also dismissed. Millwall had gone 3 games without a win, and fell behind at home to Chesterfield, after a magnificent run by Chris Beaumont. The goal itself was worthy of acclaim, but this was Beaumont's first in 20 months. Millwall finally got their act together after half an hour. A pinpoint cross was powered home by Lucas Neal. And the points were effectively decided before half-time, when 5 minutes later Anton Rogan nodded the ball home. Chesterfield also had Chris Perkins sent off 3 minutes from the end. Luton were the better organised team at Shrewsbury. They only needed 4 minutes to break down the home side, with Paul Schauder scoring for the second game running. Luton had to absorb their share of pressure, but added a second goal from Mitchell Thomas after 58 minutes, as Luton moved within sight of a 3rd straight win. Shrewsbury, meanwhile, was staring a 3rd consecutive defeat in the face, with Kim Grant sealing a 3-0 win for Luton, with his 3rd goal in 4 matches. Notts County are beginning to benefit from a return to scoring form by Tony Ogana, who was so prolific when with Sheffield United. His 2nd goal in as many games put them ahead against Bristol Rovers. But the visitors claimed a point to extend their unbeaten run to 5 games when Peter Beadle capitalised on Sean Murphy's back pass just after the hour. County chairman Derek Paver says his club are for sale. He wants £3 million. York haven't won a league game since the end of August and found Greg Goodridge too hard to handle at Ashton Gate. The winger set up Bristol City's opener for Kevin Nugent after just 3 minutes of Friday night's game. Goodridge did even better 2 minutes into the second half. Having won the ball, he went on another carving run that culminated in his 4th goal since signing from Queen's Park Rangers. There was just enough pace on the shot. A single goal was enough for Stockport to see off Preston. Brett Angel was on the mark just 70 seconds from the start. His 5th goal on loan from Sunderland, making it 7 wins in Stockport's last 8 games. Blackpool were strong favourites to see off a Gillingham side, still seeking their first away win following their promotion. Tony Ellis put Blackpool ahead after 65 minutes. He's now joint top scorer with James Quinn with 6 goals, almost as exciting as getting a hole-in-one. And the points were assured 8 minutes from time after a blistering shot from Mickey Mellon, who's acknowledged as one of the best midfielders in the 2nd division. "200 Walsall fans protested after losing to Plymouth, who secured their first win in 9 matches. Adrian Littlejohn scored the only goal after 15 minutes against the club he played 50 times for at the start of his career. Bournemouth had lost their previous 6 home matches, but 2 goals before half-time held them to victory against Wycombe. Matt Holland made it 2 in as many games with an athletic effort after just 5 minutes. Their 2nd goal owed everything to the enterprise of Mark Watson, who, like Holland, started his career at West Ham. Having dispossessed the defence, he scored his 1st goal since signing for Bournemouth. Wycombe lost their 1st game under caretaker manager Neil Smiley, despite Dave Farrell reducing the deficit, although the striker knew little about it. Bottom of the table, Rotherham secured their 2nd league win of the season. Mark Drew scoring the winner against Burnley, his 4th in as many games since signing on loan from Oxford.
Brentford's lead at the top is cut from 5 to 3 points. Bury won to move into 2nd place above Watford, who drew with Wrexham. Millwall move up to 5th position. Rotherham United's 2nd league win of the season moves them to within 2 points of Preston, Wycombe and York City, who all lost. Bournemouth, Blackpool and Plymouth were the other teams in the bottom half to win. He's England captain, the world's most expensive player. But Alan Shearer first came to nationwide prominence in a League Cup defeat 5 years ago. A young Shearer was in the Southampton side that went to Manchester United.
Blackmore trying to get Neil Webb on his way. Got past Adams. Handball, is it? Yes, penalty. Steve Bruce. Oh, and he's missed it. His first failure of the season. Robson, Webb, Hughes onside this time. Great chance for Mark Hughes. He's done it again. Case's free kick. Ace there! An equaliser by Alan Shearer. Play sharp onside. Good control too. Useful cross, Mark Hughes, 2-1. Hughes again. Hughes has charged it down, and Hughes has got a real chance for a hat-trick here. He's got past the goalkeeper, and he's got his hat-trick. Slipping again, and here goes Rodney Wallace. He's got support from Barry Horn. Real chance for Wallace. Brought down, was he, by Seeley? Penalty given. Alan Shearer. It's Hughes 3, Shearer 2.
Fulham shrugged off their recent indifferent form at Craven Cottage. Mike Conroy put them ahead against Doncaster with his 10th goal. The visitors had Colin Cram sent off 7 minutes later, and Fulham pressed home their advantage when Rob Scott struck from outside the area, showing Fulham aren't totally reliant on Conroy's goals. And Fulham went 3 up when Richard Carpenter struck his 2nd goal since signing from Gillingham. Doncaster boss Kerry Dixon praised Fulham as the best team in the division. Paul Birch seemed intent on taking on Fulham single-handed. Having started the move, he found the net to make the scoreline a little more respectable. Cambridge collected their 6th consecutive win with a 2-1 victory at troubled Brighton. Michael Kidd scored his 1st goal since August last year to put them ahead. It became 2-0 when Tony Richards scored his 4th goal in the last 6 games, as Brighton inched closer to their 6th defeat in 7 games to remain rooted to the bottom. They briefly held some hope of a point when Stuart Storer reduced the deficit 5 minutes into the 2nd half. But it's symptomatic of the mood of the Goldstone ground that little appears to be going right for Brighton, and Peter Smith's lunge received the red card. The club's fans would like the departure of their right back to be followed by Brighton's 2 remaining directors. Having struggled for so long, Rochdale are finding their feet, so much so they frustrated ambitious Carlisle. It was on loan Darlington striker Robbie Painter who put Rochdale ahead. Carlisle would have been delighted with their replacement for David Reeves, who's now with Preston. Alan Smart, who went the other way, scored on his debut. That came after 27 minutes. And 9 minutes into the 2nd half, they took the lead as they looked to extend their unbeaten run to 6 matches. It was Lee Peacock who made it 2-1 for a Carlisle club highly fancied to gain outright promotion. But Rochdale have embarked on their own unbeaten run, now extended to 3 games after Dave Thompson equalised 9 minutes from the end. It was his 1st goal of the season and a further sign of Rochdale's growing confidence. Wigan aren't the best travellers in the 3rd division, and they would certainly have feared the worst when Ian Kilford was sent off against Colchester after 37 minutes. It was his 2nd bookable offence. It didn't appear to matter, as 4 minutes later the 10 men took the lead. It was Kevin Sharp who scored, as Wigan looked to improve a record of just 1 win in their last 7 away games. Colchester themselves were looking for an upturn in fortune and were finding it difficult to break down a packed defence. Tony Adcock finally tapped home to equalise in the 69th minute, and Colchester didn't look back. They took the lead through a rarity, David Gregory's 1st goal for the club, and 1st since May Day 1993 when he was with Ipswich. It was worth the wait. And Colchester were assured of their 1st win in 7 games when another player who's rarely on the score sheet made it 3-1. This was Cole Dogood's 1st goal since New Year's Day. Hereford haven't won away all season, but they were given a great start at Torquay when a move closely resembling a pinball machine resulted in a goal credited to Chris Hargreaves. Torquay are the form team, having lost only 1 of their last 7 games, and they equalised on the stroke of half-time thanks to a terrific shot from Alex Watson. Hereford had 4 new signings on show, but it made little difference, as they again slumped to defeat. They've only gained 1 point from a possible 21 away. Steve Winter scored the winning goal for Torquay after an hour. It was his 1st ever goal as a professional, spanning over 50 matches for 2 clubs. Events at Brisbane Road were somewhat overshadowed by the Hull fans' 2nd pitch invasion in as many matches to protest at the running of the club. Yet Tony Bryan had put them ahead against Leyton Orient after 57 minutes. Their biggest problem is finding a killer touch, having drawn 7 of their 12 games. And when Mark Greaves scooped the ball away with his hands, Orient were able to extend their unbeaten home run to 6 matches, with Dominic Naylor scoring from the spot for a 1-1 draw. Scarborough fell to break down Chester, with keeper Ronnie Sinclair defying the Seaside club, who are unbeaten in their last 4 games. Neither Cardiff or Barnet had a manager after Terry Buddavant's shock departure, but Barnet stuck to their task, with Gary Brazil scoring his first goal since November when he scored for Fulham against his current club. Cardiff equalised in the 26th minute, Craig Middleton's shot finding its way home for his 3rd goal in 4 matches. On Monday, Alan Mullery was confirmed as Barnet's director of football, and the mood at Underhill will be upbeat after Sean Devine secured a 2-1 win with his 7th goal of the season. The players may feel another celebration is in order. The euphoria of their Coca-Cola Cup demolition of Manchester City is wearing thin for Lincoln, who fell behind to Scunthorpe in the 27th minute through Steve Howsham. Lincoln's 2nd consecutive defeat was assured when David Dowrier made it 2-0 18 minutes into the 2nd half with one of the simplest goals he'll ever score. Hartlepool against Darlington might not have the glamour attached to the other North East derbies, but there's no less passion, and Darlington went ahead through Glenn Naylor after 35 minutes. Hartlepool were trying to avoid a 3rd consecutive defeat, and Stephen Halliday got them back into the match just after the hour. But Darlington won the battle for pride and points, Michael Oliver's 4th goal of the season, providing Darlington's first win in 7 matches. Mansfield collected their 3rd draw on the trot, although they might have beaten Swansea if Mark Sell had been able to take a sharp chance. Northampton notched their first away win of the season on their favourite ground. Christian Lee the scorer at Exeter, where Northampton are unbeaten on their last 9 visits.
Fulham returned to the top of Division 3 after their 9th win of the season. Carlisle, the leaders going into the weekend, dropped to 3rd. They drew, while Cambridge United won at Brighton. And Brighton are now 3 points adrift at the bottom after Rochdale's draw with Carlisle. Colchester United won for only the 2nd time this season, and that victory has lifted them up 5 places.
OK, last word this week to Manchester City's Nigel Clough. Nigel, big week for the club, and in the end a good result for the club.
Yes, it could easily have been 3 points, and I think certainly 2nd half we deserved all 3 points.
Steve Coppell's come in. How much has he said? What has been his message to the players?
Well, he's only been in for about 3 or 4 days, so I don't think he's had too much time to impress all his ideas. But really, it's just a continuation of what we've been doing. Just we're a little bit more competitive today, maybe. We've passed the ball about. We've given away a couple of daft goals, really, but we've managed to score 2 away from home, hit the woodwork 3 times, so I think he's very pleased with that.
How important for the club after 42 days or whatever was it that you had a manager, that you've got someone on the bench who's going to be there for, let's hope, a few years?
Yes, I think that settles everybody down. You saw the supporters today. I think they were pleased that somebody's in the job. Ace has done a brilliant job and he's still with us, which is good over the last few weeks. But, you know, we've got somebody, as you say, settled hopefully for the next few years, and we can start building and getting back to the Premiership.
How tough has it been? How much of a mess has it been? From the outside, it seems like it's a real mess sometimes.
Yeah, I think football clubs get themselves into these sort of problems sometimes, and very difficult to get out of once you get on that downward spiral. I think it started with relegation last season. Very difficult to get out of.
Are you good enough, because people have said you aren't after the season so far, but are you good enough, do you feel you've got the players, now the manager, to really be up where the bookies said you would be at the start of the season?
Oh, definitely. Anybody who saw us today and at certain times this season, we've been a bit up and down, hit and miss this season, but when we are on our form, I don't think there's anybody that touches in the division.
When Georgi Kinkladze's on his form, there aren't many to touch him in Europe. Against Queen's Park Rangers, I think Steve Coppell said he was special.
Yes, it's superb having the team. You know, you can just give him the ball, off he goes, does his own thing. He'll have a shot, he'll create a chance for somebody, and he's always causing problems for the opposition. And especially today, when we were on top second half, absolutely brilliant to have in your team.
Does he really want to play at this level? That's been said about him, hasn't it? Is it below him? Is it beneath him? His mind's on other things. You're with him in the dressing room.
Yeah, I don't think that worries him unduly. I think he wants to enjoy playing football, and he's enjoyed it at Manchester City for the last 18 months. And as long as we're up there and challenging, hopefully he'll stay with us.
Watch out, England, maybe. Georgia, England next month in the World Cup.
Yeah, we'll have to be very careful of him. It's in Georgia, and I think they're a little bit special on the home ground. So England will have to be very careful.
Nigel, thanks very much. Good luck in the coming months, and the Steve Coppell, of course.
Thank you.
Well done to Man City. We're back next week, same time, same place, with all the goals and the news. See you then. Bye-bye.
Nationwide Football League Extra in association with the Nationwide Building Society.